Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film, One Battle After Another, seems tailor-made for controversy. A film about violent left-wing extremists is sure to leave a bad taste in the mouths of a few people, especially after some recent events that are still in the forefront of their minds. But before you write it off as yet another bonehead, tone-deaf Hollywood movie, consider maybe that there's a little more than meets the eye. One Battle After Another stars Leonardo DiCaprio as a man living under the alias of Bob Ferguson, a washed-out single father, struggling to care for his daughter, now going by the name Willa. Before Willa was born, Bob was Ghetto Pat Calhoun, an explosives expert working for the extremist revolutionary group the French 75, who employed destructive tactics to achieve their political goals and rob banks to finance their operations. A key figure in the group is an unstable woman, Willa's mother, Perfidia Beverly Hills, played by Tiana Taylor. After doing a bit of an oopsie, a big old whoopsie doodle, and murdering a security guard in a botched bank robbery, Perfidia betrays the French 75, going into witness protection and later fleeing across the southern border never to be seen again. Now, 16 years later, the demons of Bob's past have returned, threatening to wreak havoc on himself and his now teenage daughter. It's a daring proposition, making his character a domestic terrorist, but Anderson has never shied away from, let's say, complicated characters. Nobody had any trouble separating the director from Daniel Plainview, Frank Mackey, Freddie Quell, or even Tom York. But this is such a hot-button topic these days, it's easy to see where the confusion lies. But consider that, if this movie were about right-wing extremists and audiences were calling him a Nazi or whatever, wouldn't something seem really off about that? Let's take a closer look at these characters, shan't we? Bob begins the movie as your stereotypical docile, progressive male. He's willing to resort to violence and mayhem in support of his cause, but in his personal life, he's weak and ineffectual, drug around by the ear by a strong woman who don't need no him. He spends the first act of this movie struggling to justify his own existence to her. And not to reveal too much, he ends up becoming a literal cuck in the strongest sense of the word. But being a father seems to bring out the best in Bob. He begged Perfidia to leave the French 75 and raise their daughter with him. He would literally go to the ends of the earth for his child, but there's a duality to him. Everything good in Bob relates to his traditional role as a father figure. There's only so much of this modern-day woke crap he's willing to take, but the implacable memory of his violent past haunts him, and he retreats behind a cloak of weed smoke and self-pity. Every struggle in his life, every battle after the other is self-imposed. Every victory, on the other hand, is one out of necessity, done for the sake of his little family. Perfidia, however, is arguably the main villain of the film. She is the catalyst to everything. Each hardship faced is in direct response to her actions. On paper, she's everything that the modern audience craves. She's strong, she's woman, she's black, she's magic, she's sociopathic. She felt like Tony Montana. The film, perhaps subversively, subtly highlights why these shining features on their own don't necessarily make for a good person. A major focus of the group is illegal immigration, and the French 75 is shown liberating migrant detention centers. And how does she do her part? She kicks Mexicans out of their cots and screams right in their frightened faces. More than that, she finds the center's commanding officer, Sean Penn's Steve Lockjaw, sleeping and not a threat, waking him up so she can sexually humiliate him for no good reason. Little does she know that he could go for a little shame play. It awakens an obsession, a dark cognitive dissonance in Lockjaw that leads him to react in full force, only causing pain and suffering for her own group. After Perfidia, whose name is Spanish for treachery, botches a bank robbery by outright murdering a security guard, Lockjaw exploits the opportunity to exact revenge. To save herself from prison, she rats out her entire crew, directly causing the deaths of many, and in response, the survivors go into hiding. She is introduced to a cushy life in witness protection, but to evade the unrelenting presence of Lockjaw, she flees. As far as anyone else is concerned, she's dead, the ghost that continues to haunt all who dared cross her path. The film's ostensible villain, Colonel Steve Lockjaw, is an outright cartoon character. Besides the name, he's an open racist fueled by hate and rage, merciless and unafraid to shoot his enemies on sight. He's also an absolute buffoon. On top of which, there is an internal struggle against the crippling temptation of black Girl Magic, when he's invited to join the Cryptocratic Christmas Adventurers Club, a group of Santa Claus worshipping white supremacists. His past dalliance with Perfidia complicates the matter, and Bob is left holding the bag. If this is starting to sound insane to you, I think you're getting the point. I haven't even gotten around to Benicio del Toro's human trafficking karate instructor. The Christmas Adventurers Club doesn't resemble any right-wing group you've ever heard of. It's closer to a wild conspiracy theory come to life. It's a boogeyman, a far-left fantasy, a fever dream, a thematic representation of the revolutionaries being the cause of their own downfall. This is an absurdist satire, a farce, but satirical against whom? Not the right, I'd say. There's really nothing actually right-wing in this movie at all. The progressive left, however, is here in full force, on both sides, really, and the results are as scathing as they can be hilarious. Anderson's films are not easy to parse. There are no easy answers. They're at best deceptively simple and occasionally inscrutable. It's understandable with what seems like his most accessible film to date, a beautifully crafted action comedy, that the politics are as lame-brained and hack as anything else coming out of Hollywood these days, but Paul Thomas Anderson isn't a hack. He makes movies without obvious messages or satisfying endings that leave you on an unexpected staccato note that forces you to chew on what you've just witnessed for a few years before you even quite know what to think. That may not be what you're looking for in your theater-going experience, but if you're sick of being preached to, pay maybe a little closer attention to this one. You might find that it has more to say than it seems at first blush. Plus, Jim Downey's in it, and he's great as always. Anyway, thanks for listening.
I'm finished.